latest advancements in artificial intelligence. How can it be integrated into project management, especially in civil engineering projects? So I have a few examples for you. There. Earlier we had a little problem with the presentation, so I will have to use a tool to generate it. So we're going to start with that. And with this tool, I'll be able to paste the text I had planned for the presentation and go through it quickly. So, while the tool is creating the presentation, I'm going to choose a clear professional theme that will go well with the presentation, and it will generate it. So, what we are going to see is mainly how we prepare, we plan a project, and how in the different stages of the project, artificial intelligence can intervene. So we're going to look at it up front. This project, the thoughts we need to consider, how we can structure a project, and then we'll see along the way how current AI tools can help us. And we are still experiencing very strong growth in terms of technological advancements, logic in relation to AI. So what we're seeing today will possibly be enhanced in just a few months or even in a few weeks. So what we used is a free tool called Gamma, which allows us to create presentations and do this in a few clicks, as you have seen from the information I'm sharing about a complex. So it's still finishing generating. And what we see here is a project that talks about optimization security. And we have all the phases of the project that can be generated. And the tool provides us with image outputs and visual renderings that will match our needs. And simply we can change the images or add text. So creating PowerPoint now is done more with very complex features. We have tools that can create them for us in just a few minutes. And what you see on the screen is that in just a few minutes we have these for pretty much everything that generates text, including even visuals. You don't have it on the screen. The PowerPoint took up all the space. So what I did was copy and paste the content from the meeting, and what we see here is the output it produced. So you didn't see it. Creating the presentation, which was still super interesting, but if I put it in full screen, AI tools can create presentations like this in just a few clicks in a few minutes to help you present your projects, make meeting reports, and so on. So that's what I wanted to show you quickly. And where we're going in the meeting is really to create a project and manage a project from start to finish. And for that, I use an assistant that was created for DNA project management and publishing. So we definitely have users of ChatGPT here by a raised hand who are using AI users, even a lot. So ChatGPT is one of the tools that is very popular, that is used, but it still has its limitations. Are there people using virtual assistants, agents? A little less, but indeed these are the next advancements we see. Unlike tools like ChatGPT, virtual assistants and agents can be customized and adapted to our context, allowing them to perform specific tasks, whether in project management, human resources, grant research, or content creation, in communications. So, the platform I'm presenting to you here has over 50 assistants. They are available and very well trained. So, in the municipal sector, for example, we have planning assistants that have in their knowledge base the provincial and federal regulations. In the second phase, we integrate the regional regulations of the MRC. And at the third level, we include the local regulations of the municipality or the city. And we have an assistant that can respond to all requests in real time, whether from citizens or the urban planning manager, so the municipal inspector. So it's an acceleration of processes. MNC of Montmagny has 10 assistants in each of the municipalities. The city of Bécancour, not far from here, has its own planning assistant. And that means it saves time. 3, 4, 5, 8 hours a week of time in the management and issuance of permits. And we can expect that on average, a personalized incident saves about the number of hours that an individual gains, and it distracts from a specific position. On the other hand, if we use a few trials, we're more of a generalist, but it all comes back to the same total. Because AI tools that are trained and customized with our context, our company, our reality, and on top of that, we can teach it to write like us, making it a companion that's available in real time 24 hours a day. So, here what I did was take the sound project and I prepared myself in advance. I had the conference earlier and I shared it to create the PowerPoint. And here I've set the context of a project, so a general project. And you'll see that I can share a document with the assistant, so I can ask it about specific details. In this case, I looked for a document from New Brunswick that outlines the best rules and practices in civil engineering. So I'm sharing it with him. The assistant is in the process of integrating it into its knowledge base. And I'm going to give it my request. So I have a request that's quite elaborate. And honestly, I would have made that request myself. I wouldn't have been as private as using an assistant next to me that I asked what I wanted to do. And there was a young request that was much better than mine. So my stomach, it's going to be much more relevant. So there's the specifications. I'm talking to him about the context and objectives and analyzing the specifications for a civil engineering construction project. The PDF document is provided, so it's here, and now I'm launching my request. So the assistant is getting familiar with the document in the background, and it's also taking in the information it has in its knowledge base. Its knowledge base consists of what we've given it, like rules, instructions, and documents to consult. And at that point, it generates a response in relation to our context. So here what he tells us to carry out an in-depth critical analysis of the civil engineering challenge you have provided. I will structure the assessment according to the detailed instructions you have received. So it's me who lined up the output I wanted to have. So that's crucial, the way to communicate with the tools and to do it non-verbally. That's what determines whether we get a good response or a less good one. And when you communicate with general purpose tools, like ChatGPT, for example, or Vocule's Gemini, or the other tools that are out there, on this topic, we don't have the ability to integrate information or specific instructions related to our context. You can't put documents into its knowledge base, and that's it, the limits, and they will respond to us with data. General purpose tools that were used for its training. So the tools are often trained in advance. In fact, they are, with billions of data points coming from the internet. And in the case of ChatGPT, it ends in December 2023. So if we don't have the web function to actually fetch information, we're going to live with the output they give us. Moreover, there might be incorrect information in its knowledge base. And the tool will respond based on the information it has in its knowledge base, without being able to do so, to judge whether the information is real or not. So when we have trained assistants like this, and its role is to respond to us based on the data in its knowledge base, we ensure that the rendering and the output response are compliant, then it will comply with the regulations. So let me make this simple. What we give to the assistant, the information we share with it, the quality of the information we share, will determine whether we get a good output response. So it analyzed the content. What's relevant is that we also have the sources. So it can tell us which document it searched in. We can even have an option to see the text boxes it referred to in order to respond. So it provides security when we're in a legislative context, for example. We would like to know which article of law was used to generate the response in order to ensure the consistency of the information being shared with us. He did the economic evaluation, budget assessment, and planning methodology. It offers me risk analysis, etc. And that's the first phase, so I can make it work. I can take it very far in its thinking. Now it's going to ask me what this project is about, because I know it consulted the document, and it will be able to give me an idea of the document that is in place. then you'll see I'm going to start making it work to create a project for us. So the tool will support me from start to finish. And we come to the topic of the conference on planning, from ideation to the madness of the project. So, in this case, he's telling us that the project described in the specifications mainly concerns road construction involving grading, aggregate production, layer installation, etc. The information in the document that we shared with him, but also, generated in this knowledge base. And I often talk to you about the knowledge base. Imagine that a tool has the prices of raw materials, it has the labor costs, it has the equipment usage costs. And I tell him that on average, a 1 kilometer road project will take X number of hours, X number of tons of material. And I say to him, if it's half a meter thick there, I'm going to go with a foot thick, 6 inches thick of aggregate. From the moment I instruct it and provide information about my project and make a request, it can generate estimates. So it could calculate the revenue price of a project if I've properly set it up beforehand with the information regarding the context. So it can provide a budget price, but if I'm very precise with the information I've shared, it will also be able to give me a cost forecast. In this case, he's talking to me about specs. And I go step by step. So I'm talking to him about the ideation phase, for example. And I don't rush it too much, but you'll see that he will gradually guide me through all the steps I need to carry out my project. And through this step, we're also going to think about certain smart automation features. Because Convoy is a tool that can generate content, generate information, and help you with decision making. Looking to the future. So when I give him information about the past, he can project himself into the present or the future. From the moment I give him actions to perform, because here we see content creation. Good. At that moment it will generate automation. For example, we'll see shortly, we'll have a process with meetings. We have a tool that we can connect to Zoom, Teams, Google Meet, or even live or in person with your team at a construction meeting. The information goes into an assistant automatically without us having to do any technological maneuvering, because it was set up beforehand, this automation. And we're going to consult the assistant, Sophie, for drafting the minutes. And she will draft the minutes. She will give us the actions we need to take, what you need to do. And ultimately, we could connect this to a task calendar or ask. And the tool is to push the information to give it an organizational structure for our project. And naturally, during the project over a few months, there are a lot of meetings. So it accumulates in the same assistant, and we can ask him to give a summary of the last 3 meetings. Have we realized the tasks we had planned based on the discussions we had? I remember what I discussed with Pierre at the meeting on March 12th. Can you give a summary? So the tool, it has the information, it's fed with that, and its task is to provide you with outputs based on the requests we make. And among them we'll see. The same goes for emails. You know, a meeting, the meeting ends. You have a project you're managing. You've given a number, for example, 1425 for today. Beganto. Zeit. At that moment, we can automate your email inbox, all the emails that come in. When you've naturally given your suppliers and your team that code or that project number, but the automation tool in the background, which is for project management, what do you still have to respond to? Without any intervention on our part, if it's a simple request for an inclusive reception, it will sort the email into the folder. So, what you already have as a filing system with rules, it exists, it works. Now you can bring in AI tools for content generation that will draft responses. For example, in one of the municipalities where we integrated AI, there is a request to create a job posting. The tool will draft the job posting. Then, when the resumes come in, the email system will be able to indicate. If it's a resume, it's for a position X. It will respond to the sender by saying, "We have received your email." It will be forwarded to the HR department, and we could have automated the sending of the email to the HR department if it was sent in the general inbox of the municipality. And the same thing, it could also generate in a very specific case in urban planning. I give it as an example because it is a case. What we do, he could generate a very structured response, send it in a bubble to the email box of the urban planning inspector for him to consult, then for him to validate. If that makes sense, before you fuck him wholesome and send him citizens. We're in the ideation phase. So you understand the mechanics? I can gradually get the AI tools to work like this. Now I could say I'm at the stage of make me the specifications, for example. And since the tool has several models and knows the best practices in civil engineering and project management, it will start drafting the specifications for the project we want to revive. And I can bring it with a very simple load wedge, but I could take any sections that have been written and I can ask it to go much further in its approach to enhance each of the paragraphs it suggests to us. So we're at the specifications, the infrastructure, the equipment, the validation of the document, the conclusion. So I could say, well, modify the first point and go a bit further. Team organization and preparation of the bid. So here you understand that I've covered each of the points. We could go quite far in the process, but I'm going to show you how we enhance the information. And just so you know, we can do this with the intrusive section as well. We can go anywhere with the tools as long as they've been well trained and have the right references to be able to respond to us. So we're at the stage. And why? Is it much more precise and clear than tools like FAT-GBD? I'm repeating myself, but it's knowledge base. I was just talking to you about automation tools. I'll show you as soon as it's done what it can look like. To what? And here's an example with Gmail. It could be with Outlook or any other tool. The email is generated and received in the inbox. And here, the automation system, depending on the type of subject that is entered and generated in the box, will call the assistant, which is the most appropriate, the most trained to respond. So if it's human resources, it's human resources. If it's a request in urban planning, it's urban planning. So it can decide the subject and be able to call the assistant who will be able to respond. After that, it will generate either a draft response or an acknowledgement response. It can redirect the email to another email box. And in the case of urban planning, we are now at the stage where we start working with permit management. So the permits are sent as PDFs by email, or by completing them online virtually. And the assistant is able to check the content of the permit and validate it. Validate, for example, whether it complies with the regulations or not. So there's a loop that connects with the citizen to ensure that the documents received match their permit request. It analyzes the permit request, and when it is compliant, it continues. At that moment, the urban planner's calendar is shared with the citizen so that he can make an appointment and meet with the urban planner who should have received the file and can prepare for it. So we avoid a lot of back and forth and trips to the municipal office or the city for issues where the file is not complete. Or a file that is simply not compliant. So these are the automation systems that are available. Here, I showed you a very simple one with a tool called Make, which is available for pretty much everyone. But we can use tools like Power BI from the Microsoft suite, Power Apps, where we integrate everything within your ecosystem. It's Microsoft, for example. The tools can also connect to SharePoint with connectors or API keys within your server. So we have the documents that are in the knowledge base of the adapter, but but you could simply have your documents on your server, and when there is a request, the assistant takes an action. And it will check the documents on your server to provide you with an appropriate response regarding your request. I would say these are new opportunities we have to use AI, which have been developed in the last 24 months. I'm talking about content generation and the progress where we can have traditional automation interaction with tools that will generate content. So we are at intelligent automation. I talked to you about the meeting. I'm going to show you what the appointment assistant is. Earlier I was telling you no matter the appointments, whether they're in person or virtual, we can connect, as I mentioned, on pretty much any tool. Well, I'm naming the most popular ones: Teams, Zoom, or Google Meet. And the tool automatically has the meeting in its knowledge base. It's finished in the minutes right away. It's integrated into the tool. And I could, for example, do like I did here, share with it the agenda of the meeting and say, here's the agenda for my meeting on February 28th. And from March Dauken, and prepare me a set of minutes. So Lucy will prepare the minutes. She does it here. She mentions the points of difficulty, the source to summarize the information, and she will separate the two meetings. But she didn't quite get it, so maybe the request wasn't clear enough here. In the second step, I said, merge the content of the two meetings and topics discussed into a single set of minutes, and after the minutes, summarize all the other topics we talked about in full. So, the title merges the two. It lists the titles of both meetings, it creates my minutes, and I could elaborate a lot more. And then, it brings me the details of the topics that were discussed. So it adds to me, even the immediate actions, what I need to do. So it could even be, as I mentioned, automated and sent to my calendar, talking about dates and deliverables that would be important too. And the progress of the project, well, it's evolving, as I mentioned. You have a project that lasts a few months. Well, all the meetings are in the system, and it is capable of integrating and helping us in our decision-making regarding the project's progress. Now here, I'm going to ask to prepare the draft agenda. That's true, I had gone further because he knows the agenda, he made the minutes. Now I say I have a new one, and you're going to draw inspiration from the previous one. You're going to add and integrate the following topics that haven't been addressed. We're going to make a list of priorities. In 3 to 4 weeks, that will add more than 36 years. So, I tell him what I want to do or what we discussed between the two meetings so that he can prepare a draft agenda for me. So he's preparing a draft agenda for me. He gives me an estimated duration that I could change, but he brings me my follow-up points. So at a certain point, from the beginning of the meeting to the creation of the minutes, it's going to generate for me now my agenda for the next meeting. At that point, I didn't have a variable. I was already saying that my variable is tracked based on previous discussions. So she leads me to further reflection in order to optimize my work as much as possible, the follow-up of my upcoming meetings. So today, the idea is to give an overview. I'm giving criminals 3 hours, and we don't even touch on everything we can do with AI. But it's to give you an idea of how we can use the tools now available in project management. And you could have, the project management assistant, it's easy to, I would say from PyCap, so we have a general assistant for our organization, we have a specific project, we're going to clone it and share the project so that from start to finish, it specifically supports us for a project we've determined in advance. What I would like is, I have 5 minutes left. If you have any questions, because you all seem very calm, maybe take them. And maybe you have some ideas, you question what it could do to the wood. Then it would allow us to respond to it and maybe answer some questions that you have been left wondering about. Thank you. That's interesting. Question regarding data privacy. I'm going to go over the plans. It's persistent. Someone else will see part of this, how it works. Actually, that's a great question. I haven't addressed it. The traditional tools we have, the large language models, are mostly free. The goal is to gather data and use it to train the models. So, on the side, they allow us to use the large language models. When I say they allow us, I mean both OpenAI and Gemini, or a business club that has created client countries that allow people like us who are developing to connect to the model. Then, of course, it's done securely. The data is shared. Copilot is connected to the large model from OpenAI, just like we are and like ChatGPT. ChatGPT being a generalist instance that is connected to the same model. So on one hand, to generate revenue for their business, they allow people to use that model. So the data, when it's stored in an assistant, is transformed into vectors. We don't have access to the information. We still have to trust the providers. If Microsoft trusts OpenAI, do you think it makes sense to cut it off as well? If, on my side, the question was rather the way I used to give these migrations, the prongs, artificial intelligence, because it's certain that it will give us an answer and it's sure that it will be based on the latest update from 2023. It depends if it's the choice of the country. But the way you analyze the results you provided to the agency is something that is reliable, so it meets certain standards or technical restrictions. As I mentioned earlier, we have a conversation, we exchange, we have the sources. We can also extract the sources really in bulk. And when we use language models with personalized assistance, the instructions ensure that the request that the user makes and the response that is generated come from the documents in their knowledge base. And it prevents it from searching for general information that is distorted in the large models. The information that you had to train them. So one way to ensure the quality of the response from an artificial intelligence tool is to provide it with the information it is allowed to refer to. I think in urban planning, there are some pretty complex regulations. We don't want to look for information that doesn't make sense. On the other hand, it's going to use its neural network to generate a response and create everything we have through the information we've shared with it. So we've just limited the tickets to almost 100%. That's it for me. My time is up. I'm already at -1. Thank you very much. I hope you want to keep using the MIOP tools. I think this is just the beginning of what we can do. We are developing a project for the city of Montpellier, and it evaluates the value of properties based on algorithms that we don't have enough of in operation. Well, we're down here.